There is a moment in every soul's journey when love arrives not as a storybook promise, but as a quiet turning of the heart. It does not shout, it does not demand, it simply appears, like a soft light touching the edges of a long closed window. And in that instant, we begin to see differently. My first real encounter with love did not come wrapped in fireworks or the certainty I once believed would accompany destiny. Instead, it came gently, almost humbly, asking me to slow down and pay attention. It taught me that love is not an event, it is an awakening. Before it, I walked through life with a kind of emotional nearsightedness, seeing people through the lens of my expectations, fears, and insecurities. Love was the first force that asked me to lift my eyes and see the world, and myself, with more honesty. It was uncomfortable at first. Love can be a kind mirror, but it is a mirror nonetheless. It made me aware of the walls I had built, the stories I repeated, and the ways I kept myself protected from being fully known. I remember realizing that love is not simply what we feel for another person. It is what another person calls forth in us. And sometimes, what they awaken is not soft or beautiful. Sometimes, it is the part of us that trembles. Love taught me that vulnerability is not weakness. It is the beginning of vision. When we allow someone to be close enough, they reveal the depth we didn't know we carried. They show us the tenderness we had forgotten to nurture, the fears we tried to outrun, and the courage we never suspected was ours. In this way, love becomes a teacher long before it becomes a commitment. There is also a quiet trust that grows inside when we let ourselves be touched by genuine affection. Not the trust in another person, though that may come, but a trust in life itself. A belief that we are meant to feel deeply, to connect, to risk, to open. Love reintroduces us to the world as if we were seeing it for the first time. Colors become richer, silence becomes meaningful, and even small moments carry a sense of significance. Looking back, I realized that what I called my first experience of love was, in truth, my first experience of clarity. Someone walked into my life and, without trying to change me, allowed me to see who I truly was beneath the layers of self-protection. And that is the first blessing of love. It awakens our vision before it awakens our passion. It teaches us to recognize not only the heart of another, but the quiet, hidden truth of our own. Before any vows are spoken, long before two lives are woven together, something else enters the union first: our silent expectations. They walk ahead of us like invisible guests, carrying the weight of our unspoken hopes, old wounds, childhood memories, and half-imagined dreams. Most of the time, we do not even realize we brought them with us. When I look back at my own journey, I see how many stories I carried without knowing. I believed that love meant constant harmony, that a partner should intuitively understand my needs, that commitment would somehow erase loneliness, fear, or doubt. These expectations were never declared out loud. They were inherited from the movies I watched, the families I observed, the books I devoured, and the fantasies I built to protect myself from heartbreak. Marriage has a way of revealing these quiet beliefs, not through dramatic moments, but through the small, ordinary days when real life stands where fantasy once lived. It is in the disappointment when a partner does not react the way we imagined. It is in the frustration of feeling unseen. It is in the question that rises silently: why isn't this matching the picture I carried inside? We rarely realize how much pressure we place on another person simply by expecting them to fulfill the roles we silently assigned. The role of healer, the role of protector, the role of mind reader, the role of constant reassurance. We enter marriage believing we are choosing a partner. We often forget we are also choosing to unravel the illusions we brought with us. For me, the hardest realization was understanding that my expectations were not about the other person at all. They were echoes of my own unmet needs, shaped long before love arrived. Marriage does not magically dissolve these needs, it simply holds them in a brighter light. And in this light, we are invited to grow. There is something humbling about facing the truth that no one can be everything we hoped for. No one can match a lifetime of imagined perfection. And yet, there is something profoundly liberating in letting those silent expectations fall away. When we release them, we create space for a more authentic love to emerge. A love based on who we truly are, not who we believe we should be. Marriage deepens when expectations become conversations, when assumptions become honesty, when silence becomes vulnerability. It is not easy to admit what we secretly hoped for or feared. But when we do, the relationship shifts, the weight lifts, the heart opens. What remains after the illusions dissolve is a partnership rooted in reality, not fantasy. A space where two souls can finally meet without the burden of silent demands. And in that meeting, love becomes something deeper, truer, and far more beautiful than anything we once imagined. There comes a moment in every relationship when love must evolve from sentiment into practice. This is the moment when two separate paths, shaped by different histories and inner worlds, attempt to move forward together. It sounds simple in theory, almost poetic. But in truth, learning to walk as one is an art and often a difficult one. When I first entered this stage, I believed harmony would happen naturally, as if affection alone had the power to align two lives. I imagined that love would smooth every difference, dissolve every conflict, and turn our days into an effortless dance. But life has its own way of teaching, and marriage, perhaps more than any other bond, is where these lessons arrive with humility and clarity. Walking together begins with recognizing that each person carries an entire universe within. Two universes do not merge without creating friction. The values we were raised with, the ways we handle stress, the unspoken habits, the rhythms of our emotions, all of these begin to reveal themselves when two lives join. It can feel like trying to synchronize steps with someone who learned to dance to a completely different beat. The real work begins not when everything aligns, but when it doesn't. When one moves faster than the other, when silence is misunderstood, when expectations clash, when the familiar ways of protecting ourselves no longer work. This is the sacred and uncomfortable ground where compromise, patience, and understanding must grow. I learned that walking together does not mean losing yourself. It does not mean shrinking your dreams or silencing your needs. Instead, it means expanding your capacity to listen, to soften, to consider more than your own point of view. It requires seeing the person beside you not as an extension of your hopes, but as a soul with their own labyrinth of emotions and fears. There were moments when I felt the distance between us more than the closeness, times when it seemed easier to walk alone than to try again to find our shared rhythm. But something deeper insisted that love is not polished, it is practiced, and practice requires patience, sometimes more than we think we possess. Slowly, often invisibly, a new path began to form beneath our feet. Not mine, not his, but ours. A path shaped by mutual effort, by the willingness to return after misunderstandings, by the courage to say what hurts, and the tenderness to hear what is said in return. I realized that unity is not created in the bright moments of celebration, but in the quiet persistence of everyday choices. It is built when we stay open, even when our instinct is to guard ourselves. It grows when we learn to adjust without losing integrity and to stand firm without closing our hearts. Where two paths learn to walk as one, love becomes less about perfection and more about presence. It becomes a journey of two souls choosing again and again to move together, sometimes softly, sometimes clumsily, but always with intention. It is in this imperfect merging that true companionship is born. There comes a point in every marriage when the illusion of perfection finally collapses. The small cracks that once went unnoticed widen into fractures, and the tender dream of a life without pain dissolves. In these moments, love stops being a promise and becomes a test. They arrive quietly at first, a harsh word spoken in exhaustion, a night spent in silence, a disappointment that lingers longer than it should. Then, one day, something inside shifts. You realize that love, as beautiful as it is also the place where we confront the deepest parts of ourselves. These breaking moments feel unfair. They make us question whether we chose the right person or whether we were ever meant to walk this life together. Yet beneath the surface of the pain, something far more meaningful is happening. Every heartbreak within a relationship is an invitation, a chance to see who we truly are when the comfort fades. The anger that rises is often a mask for fear. The distance we create is often a shield for our vulnerability. The tears we hold back reveal the words we never learned how to speak. It is in the breaking that the truth becomes impossible to avoid. And though it hurts, truth is one of the greatest forces of transformation. But just as life brings moments that break us, it also offers moments that remake us. These moments rarely arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. They show up quietly, in the spaces where we least expect healing to be possible. It might be a simple conversation at the kitchen table, where honesty flows for the first time in months. It might be a shared glance that reminds two souls of everything that brought them together. It might be the courage to apologize or the humility to finally listen. Remaking moments feel softer, more sacred. They do not erase the pain, but they show us that love is capable of surviving it. They teach us that healing is not a return to who we once were, but a step into a deeper, more conscious connection. These moments reshape the relationship with a new kind of wisdom, one forged through fire, but tempered with compassion. The truth is that love evolves through cycles of breaking and remaking. No marriage is spared from this dance. What defines a lasting union is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to stay open-hearted through it. When two people choose to rebuild, they discover that the very moment that once felt like the end can become the beginning of a more authentic love. In the quiet aftermath of rupture, something extraordinary becomes possible. Two souls learning to recognize each other again, not as the idealized versions they once projected, but as the imperfect, evolving beings they truly are. And this recognition, born from both fragility and courage, is what ultimately remakes love into something unbreakable. Love is often imagined as something grand, a sweeping force that arrives in flashes of passion or in life-changing moments. But the truth is far quieter. The real work of loving someone unfolds in the smallest, most ordinary gestures. It lives in the morning routines, the shared meals, the small acts of patience, and the unspoken choices we make every day to remain connected. These choices rarely feel extraordinary in the moment, yet they form the foundation upon which a marriage stands. Daily love is sacred precisely because it is intentional. It asks us to show up even when life feels heavy, even when we are tired, misunderstood, or overwhelmed. It is easy to love when everything flows effortlessly, when affection comes naturally, and when we feel seen and appreciated. But the deeper layer of love reveals itself when things are not as smooth, when we must choose compassion over irritation, presence over distraction, and tenderness over pride. This daily commitment is not glamorous. It will not be celebrated or admired by outsiders. No one sees the inner battles we fight to hold back a harsh word or the courage it takes to initiate reconciliation after an argument. No one notices how much effort it takes to listen fully, to forgive quickly, or to allow vulnerability when our instinct is to shut down. Yet these are the sacred practices that sustain a relationship long after the romantic excitement fades. Loving daily also means honoring the person in front of us as they evolve. Marriage is not a static bond. It is a living journey between two souls that are constantly changing. The person we wake up next to after 5, 10, or 20 years is not the same person we once fell in love with. And we are not the same either. Daily love invites us to keep discovering each other with curiosity and openness, allowing room for growth rather than clinging to old versions of who we were. There is a quiet spirituality in this kind of love. It teaches humility, because we must acknowledge our own flaws and limitations. It builds strength, because we learn to navigate conflict without abandoning connection. And it nurtures gratitude, because we begin to see that true companionship is not guaranteed. It is built, protected, and renewed through conscious effort. The sacred work of loving daily does not demand perfection. It simply asks for presence. It asks us to pay attention, to support each other's dreams, to share truthfully, and to cherish the simple miracles of togetherness. Over time, these small acts accumulate, weaving a bond that is resilient and deeply rooted. In the end, what keeps a marriage alive is not the intensity of passion, but the steadiness of devotion. It is the willingness to return to love again and again, even on days when it feels difficult. That is the quiet miracle of everyday love. It transforms ordinary moments into the very essence of partnership, reminding us that the true sacredness of marriage is found not in the extraordinary, but in the lovingly repeated ordinary. There comes a moment in every long-term relationship when we realize that marriage is not just a partnership of two lives, but a mirror reflecting everything within us. It shows our tenderness, our capacity for devotion, and the beauty we rarely acknowledge in ourselves. But it also reveals the parts we would rather avoid: our fears, our insecurities, our impatience, and the wounds we never fully addressed. The person we love becomes the one who reflects back to us the truth we often try to escape. This reflection can be uncomfortable. Marriage places us close enough to another human being that we cannot easily hide behind masks. The walls we built long before the relationship began start to crack under the weight of intimacy. The patterns we learned in childhood, the beliefs we inherited, the emotional scars we carry, they all emerge in moments of conflict, silence, or misunderstanding. It is not our partner who creates these shadows. They simply illuminate what was already inside us. In this sense, marriage becomes a profound spiritual teacher. It challenges us to look at ourselves with honesty and humility. When we become defensive, jealous, distant, or reactive, the mirror does not blame us. It simply invites us to explore the deeper roots of these reactions. Instead of asking what the other person is doing wrong, the spiritual mirror asks a more transformative question. What part of me is being revealed right now? This perspective can shift the entire dynamic of a relationship. Instead of seeing conflict as a threat, we begin to see it as an opportunity for growth. Instead of perceiving differences as incompatibilities, we recognize them as openings for expansion. Marriage teaches us to sit with discomfort long enough to discover its origin. It teaches us to soften, to listen, and to surrender the need to be right. In doing so, it guides us back to the essence of who we truly are. The spiritual mirror also reflects our partner's vulnerability, often before they can acknowledge it themselves. When we see their fragility, their longing to be understood, their unspoken fears, we are reminded that both hearts are learning, healing, and evolving together. Compassion naturally grows when we recognize that neither person is perfect and neither is meant to be. What makes this mirror so sacred is that it does not distort. It reflects love as clearly as it reflects pain. It shows the beauty of shared growth, the quiet strength of forgiveness, and the courage it takes to remain open in the presence of another soul. Over time, the mirror reveals a deeper truth, that marriage is not just about companionship, but about awakening. In the end, the greatest gift of this spiritual mirror is self-awareness. Through the relationship, we discover who we are, who we have been, and who we are becoming. We learn that love is not merely an emotion, but a path, one that leads us toward our highest self, guided by the reflections we encounter in the eyes of the person walking beside us. There comes a point on the journey where love is no longer understood only through the lens of emotions, attachment, or companionship. It begins to reveal itself as something much larger, something that stretches far beyond the physical form and the daily interactions of two people. Human love becomes the doorway, not the destination. And as we walk through that doorway, the soul starts to understand truths that only time, devotion, and vulnerability can uncover. Human love teaches us tenderness, but the soul learns compassion. It discovers that compassion is not simply feeling for another person, but recognizing our shared inner fragility. Every joy, every fear, every longing we experience is mirrored in someone else. In this recognition, the soul awakens to the realization that love is not something we give or receive. It is something we participate in, something we become. Human love teaches us commitment, but the soul learns surrender. It discovers that real closeness requires letting go of the illusions we hold about ourselves. The need to control, the desire to be right, the fear of being hurt. These begin to dissolve as the soul understands that love is not about winning or losing, but about opening. Each moment of surrender deepens the connection, not only to our partner, but to the deeper truth within us. Human love teaches us presence, but the soul learns timelessness. It begins to sense that the bond between two beings is not confined to a single lifetime or a single relationship. Even after bodies change, seasons shift, and circumstances evolve, something remains. The soul carries impressions, lessons, and echoes of every meaningful connection. These memories shape its growth, guiding it through future incarnations and experiences. By the end of a long journey together, whether that journey spans years, decades, or lifetimes, the soul learns that love is ultimately a form of evolution. Every conflict becomes a chance to heal old wounds. Every reconciliation becomes a reminder of grace. Every shared dream, every quiet moment, every forgiveness given or received becomes a step toward greater awareness. What the soul learns in the end is that love is not something fragile. It does not disappear when the relationship changes form. It does not break when the world becomes difficult. It does not vanish even when life takes two people in different directions. Love remains, because it is not made of the unstable things of this world. It is made of the same essence that moves the stars, shapes the oceans, and breathes life into all beings. In the end, human love is the classroom, the soul is the student, and the lesson is always the same: to remember that we are, at our core, expressions of a limitless and eternal love. Everything else, every fear, every misunderstanding, every separation, is simply part of the journey back to that truth. Through the people we love, the soul learns to return home to itself. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to let your heart speak in the comments. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or even the questions that awakened inside you while listening. Your voice helps this community grow into a space of healing, reflection, and spiritual companionship. Remember to like the video, subscribe, and activate the notifications so you never miss the next chapter of this journey. And if you feel called to support the channel in a special way, you can contribute through the Super Thanks option. It truly helps keep this work alive. I'll see you in the next video, where we continue exploring the deeper truths of the soul. Until then, take care of your light and let love guide your steps.